This is Standard Baseball. Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be doing a way too early MLB trade deadline predictions. Today we're only going to be looking at the National League West because if I did all 30 teams, this video would be 50 minutes long. Anyways, so let's take a look at the NL West standings. Right now, this is as of May 5th, as of the creating of this visual and the writing of this script. As of May 5th, the LA Dodgers are in first place with a 23-13 record. The San Diego Padres are coming in second, one game under 500, with the Arizona Diamondbacks and San Francisco Giants tied for third place. And then in fifth place are the Colorado Rockies, who have yet to win 10 games. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into each team and see what they need. In first place in the NL West, we have the Los Angeles Dodgers coming in at 23-13. Now, their lineup has been an absolute strength to this team so far in the season. They are scoring at probably the highest rate in the National League. They have arguably the highest performing top four batters in the National League in terms of their lineup. You could put their top four against another team's top four, and it's really not much of a competition going off the way these guys are performing. Mookie Betts is hitting near 350, Shohei Ohtani is hitting 360 something. I don't have the numbers in front of me, so I do apologize if it sounds like I'm kind of freewheeling it a little bit. However, despite the fact that this team is currently 10 games over 500, they do have some needs. Arguably, the biggest of those needs is their second base position. The lower half of their lineup has not really been as consistent as the team would have expected going into the offseason. Their depth has proven to be something of an issue, and I think part of that falls on their second base position. They really do need a more they need a second baseman who can hit. Their two second basemen that they've had so far, Gavin Lux and Chris Taylor, have struggled mightily to begin the year. It's possible they rebound, although I'm not quite sure if that'll happen. And then we look at their pitching depth. The Dodgers have been ravaged by injuries to their pitching staff so far early in the season, and I think part of it has to do with the amount of innings their bullpen has been asked to cover, with guys like Yamamoto only throwing 5 innings at a time. And they're having Yamamoto pitch on a once a week schedule as he did in Japan, so that might also influence some of their decision making. Even some of their younger pitchers like Kyle Hurt have ended up on the injured list so far this season. So pitching depth and second base are the Dodgers' biggest needs. Considering these needs, I have the LA Dodgers making a trade for Angels infielder Brandon Drury, with the Angels receiving right-handed prospect Peter Hoiberg in return. Now, Brandon Drury has been kind of a streaky player throughout his career. It's kind of hard to evaluate because his career kind of feels like it goes in two halves. Now, this season so far, Brandon Drury has not quite had a good season. He's slashing 173 with a 230 on base, 240 slugging, and 470 OPS. However, if we look at last season, Brandon Drury slashed 262 with a 306 on base, 497 slugging, combined for an 803 OPS and a 114 OPS plus. Now, what does this say about Brandon Drury as a player? Brandon Drury is not going to be your greatest defensive player, but the man can hit lefties and he can mash when you need him to. There's a reason he's been constantly acquired for playoff pushes, even with the San Diego Padres in 2022. And when he came into San Diego, he played fairly well and gave them a lot of big hits during their postseason run. Do I see Brandon Drury as an everyday player for the Dodgers? No. I think he'll probably platoon with Gavin Lux at second base, and they'll move Drury around the infield just to get the best kind of matchups to put their team in the best position to be able to win. Now, what are the Dodgers giving away to the Angels? The Dodgers will be sending their number 30 prospect according to MLB Pipeline in right-handed pitcher Peter Hoiberg. Peter Hoiberg was drafted in 2021, and he is coming off a relatively questionable season at um, single A, and now he is a double A. Excuse the gap, I could not read my script for a second. He's thrown 6 games down at single A double A. He has a 1-2 record with a 3.27 ERA, a 145 whip. He's pitched only 22 innings this season, but he has 34 strikeouts compared to 18 walks. Now, he is kind of a late bloomer, so his pitch mix is still developing, but he's scouted to have a fastball that can hit 95, averaging 92 to 94, a high 70s curveball, a mid 80s slider, and a developing changeup. While he is something of a late developer, scouts say he has the potential to be a mid-rotation starter. He is just going to take some time to develop. This is this would be a pretty good haul for the Angels, considering that the big foundation of their organization seems to be pitching, and their pitching development seems to not quite be there at the moment. So maybe another high upside or middle probably high upside arm addition, like a guy like Peter Hoiberg, could be what the Angels need for their future, and just for half a season of Brandon Drury, seems like a fair trade. Now let's talk about my favorite team, the San Diego Padres, who are currently in second place as of the writing of this script. The San Diego Padres have had a relatively up and down start to the season. They're 17 and 18 as of May 5th. However, have shown some tenacity, and they've shown an ability to come back from deficits, some of which I've had the privilege of writing for on the East Village Times, link in the description. But the San Diego Padres have made a great habit of coming back in games. Their starting pitching has been solid. However, there have been more questions than answers as of late. Yu Darvish has already been on the IL with neck tightness, and though he only missed 2 or 3 starts, he's still not quite a question mark, but you want to be careful with him. Joe Musgrove just landed on the IL with triceps tendonitis, so that's another storyline to monitor. They did get Randy Vasquez and Johnny Brito in the Juan Soto deal, but Vasquez is the only one being consistently used as a starter, and the third arm that they got in the trade, and Drew Thorpe, has been shipped off for Dylan Cease. They fixed one of their needs in a left-handed bat for the lineup when they traded for Luis Arraez, video in the description. However, they do still need starting pitching depth if they want to go far. Therefore, I have the San Diego Padres making a trade with the Toronto Blue Jays. The Padres will receive left-hander Yusei Kikuchi and probably some cash, whereas the Blue Jays will receive left-handed pitcher Jackson Wolf, who ranks on the Padres' top 30, catcher Brandon Valenzuela, who is also on the Padres' top 30, and right-handed pitcher Jose Luis Reyes, who is on Baseball Prospectus' top 50 prospects in the Padres organization. The big piece of this trade is, of course, Kikuchi, who has been pitching for Toronto for the last 2 seasons on a 3-year contract. This is the last year before he's scheduled for free agency, and he has been absolutely electric to start off the year. In 7 games started, he has a 2-2 record with a 2.72 ERA, 1.16 WHIP, 43 strikeouts, compared to just 9 walks. So the command has always been a question with Kikuchi, but he seems to have been able to reel it in, which is very satisfying. His FIP is also at 2.33, so you could say he's getting somewhat unlucky, even though this is an incredibly strong start to a year. Now, why does Kikuchi make a fit for the Padres? Well, he isn't going to cost a ton because he is a rental. Furthermore, his salary this year is $10 million, of which, if the Blue Jays are able to pay down some of it, will help the Padres and increase the Blue Jays' prospect return. Furthermore, the Padres have not had a single start from a left-handed pitcher this season, so getting at a different look for opponents would definitely be something that would be worth monitoring in San Diego. But what will they be giving up in return? The Padres, one of their major pieces in this trade, will be left-handed pitcher Jackson Wolf, who is re-ranked on their top 30 after ranking as number 14 for the Pirates entering the season. Now, why does he rank on 2 different prospect systems? He was DFA'd by the Pirates because they needed a 40-man roster spot, and the Padres quickly worked out a trade to get him back. He was part of the Ji-Man Choi trade to San Diego last season. Now, Wolf is a tall, lanky lefty. He doesn't throw overly hard, but he has the stuff to be an MLB starting pitcher. He has made 1 start in the big leagues, giving up 3 runs over 5 innings against Detroit last July. Meanwhile, at AAA this season, he's gone 0-3 with a 4.56 ERA and a WHIP nearing 1.6. However, this is the PCL, so take that with all the salt in the world. He has 24 strikeouts to 16 walks, and he has been on a tear as of late. He's pitched really well in his last 3 starts, including a 10 strikeout performance. So he could be on the verge of a major league call-up, but he could also be increasing his draft stock or trade stock. Also in this deal is Padres' number 11 prospect, catcher Brandon Valenzuela. Now, Valenzuela's had a very up and down career so far with the San Diego Padres. He was signed internationally in 2017, but he's barely reaching Double-A ball. He is a catcher, so they take a little bit longer to develop, so yeah, he has a lot of high upside. He has plenty of power. His power tool is one of the best in the minor leagues in terms of catchers, as you can see on screen. Now, he is still at Double-A ball, so he's still about a year or 2 away from making his major league debut. And the Padres have an absolutely stacked farm system at the catcher position, with Ethan Salas and J.D. Gonzalez tearing up the lower levels of the minors, and Luis Camposano firmly entrenched as the starter. So, is Valenzuela expendable? Not necessarily, but the Blue Jays do not have a major catching prospect that they can look to in the future if Danny Jansen or Alejandro Kirk winds up not working out. I mean, we never know if that's going to happen, but you would rather have a contingency plan than no plan at all. So Valenzuela makes sense. He fills a need for the Blue Jays minor league system as well. The final piece of this trade is right-handed pitcher Jose Luis Reyes, who at the time of this video is pitching at Single-A Lake Elsinore for the San Diego Padres organization. Now, he's not had the smoothest start to the year with an ERA nearing 9 and a WHIP nearing 2. Now, he is only 20 years old, signed out of Mexico, so he's still a long ways away from the majors. More specifically, his statistics here are an 8.68 ERA, 1.87 WHIP, with somewhat promising strikeout to walk rates at 23 strikeouts and 8 walks. He's another long-term play, but then again, the Blue Jays minor league system is full of long-term starting pitching options, so this could be another one considering when most of their starting pitchers who are currently on their roster are going to be entering free agency after next season, and the next batch of young prospects should hopefully be ready by then, led by Ricky Tiedemann. But with that being said, the San Diego Padres and the Toronto Blue Jays line up well for a trade, and this is a concept for a trade that might work. So let's move on to the next team. All right, let's talk about the Arizona Diamondbacks. They're currently sitting in third place. They're coming off a World Series run last season. However, they've had some issues this season. Their lineup has not at all been what they were expecting. Granted, they've had some key pieces coming back from injuries at the time. Geraldo Perdomo has been out. Alek Thomas has been out as well. Another thing is, because of this, they've had to put some of their guys in, let's call them less than ideal defensive positions. They've had to have Corbin Carroll out in center field, whereas he's profiled more as a corner guy, even though he has the speed. However, another thing that they've had to deal with are injuries to their pitching depth. Paul Sewald has been out for most of the year. Miguel Castro was recently placed on the IL. They don't have a consistent fifth starter behind Jordan Montgomery, Zach Gallen. Merrill Kelly was put on the 60-day IL recently as well. So they need starting pitching depth, and another thing that they might want to consider at the deadline is a left-handed bullpen arm. Right now, the only consistent one they have out there is Joe Mantiply. They brought up Brandon Hughes over the weekend. That didn't go well. He got lit up by the Padres. So if the Arizona Diamondbacks want to really go back to contending status, they might want to look into starting pitching depth and a left-handed bullpen arm. However, if they're out of it by the deadline, I could see them making some moves to trade some of the one-year pending free agents on their roster, maybe someone like a Sewald or some other outfielders like Jock Peterson and Randall Grichuk. And I think that's a pretty good segue into our Arizona Diamondbacks featured trade. In the third trade of this video, I have the Arizona Diamondbacks sending outfielder Randall Grichuk to the Twins for left-handed pitcher Cody Funderburk. Now, Randall Grichuk is known to hit lefties. The man can mash against lefties. This season alone, he's hitting .313 with a .351 on base, .406 slugging, and a .758 OPS against left-handed pitchers, which translates to a .116 OPS plus. Now, Grichuk's main value comes from his bat against left-handed pitching, but he's no slouch in the outfield either. So he could definitely be a very solid complement to a Twins lineup that skews very left-handed heavy in the outfield, with Matt Wallner, Trevor Larnach, and Max Kepler all left-handed hitting outfielders on their roster. They also added Manuel Margot to hit lefties, but he hasn't quite done that this season. So the Twins might be looking for an upgrade if they want to stay competitive, and Grichuk seems like the right guy for that task. I have the Arizona Diamondbacks getting a left-handed pitcher Cody Funderburk in return. He's been up at the big league level for a small cup of coffee last season, and he's been in their bullpen this season so far. On the season, he has a 1-0 record, a .496 ERA with a much more palatable 4.08 FIP, 10.5 strikeouts per 9, and 3.9 Ks per 9. This is the kind of guy that they need in their bullpen. They had Andrew Saalfrank there last season during the playoffs, but he's not been up at the major league level quite yet. Joe Mantiply is their only reliable bullpen arm, and if you're a left-handed bullpen arm, you want to have some strikeouts to you, and I think that Funderburk is the right guy for Arizona. That, and he'd be under control for at least 5 more seasons, depending on if they shuttle him up between the majors and AAA. So getting 5 years of a controllable relief arm for half a season of Randall Grichuk would be a good solid idea for the Arizona Diamondbacks, hence why I have both teams making this trade. Next up in the division, we have the San Francisco Giants. They had themselves an eventful offseason where they got a bunch of guys on 2 to 3 year deals or 1 year with a club option deals. And so far, it's kind of been a mixed bag, honestly. They've had some guys who are performing. Their offense has been sluggish this season, which is one of the things that they worked on to improve during the offseason. As you can see on screen, their biggest needs are a middle infielder that can hit because they can't rely on Nick Ahmed all season. they're going to need starting pitching because their pitching itself has been ravaged by injuries, and they need optional bullpen depth because they keep cycling through waiver wire guys. And if you thought it's just me being a Padres fan saying that they're not good,
No, we
well,
gotta play better. So, we left home. What were we, one game under 500? We weren't playing very well. I thought that might be a pretty good place for us, being that we hadn't played well. And now we're playing terribly. So we have to clean it up.
well, after hearing that, I don't have a lot of faith in the San Francisco Giants. Like, I'm just gonna say it. I've not had a lot of faith in them when I saw their roster, when I saw their rotation. It's strong, but for the division that they're playing in, I don't think it's a top three rotation. I think they're still a ways away from being a contending team, and I think it would probably be in their best interest to sell off at the deadline. Granted, I could be wrong and they could surge and be in a place to buy at the deadline. And if they are, that's great. That means more competition in the NL West. However, I'm not going to jump to any conclusions, so I'm just using these standings to come up with a trade. Considering where they are in the standings right now, here's the trade I've come up with. I have the San Francisco Giants trading Michael Conforto and cash to the Milwaukee Brewers in exchange for outfielder Garrett Mitchell and right-handed pitcher Bradley Blaylock, who is ranked as number 17 in the Brewers system. Now, why would the Giants trade Conforto? Michael Conforto is only under contract for this year. He has a club option for next season. He is going to be a free agent after the year no matter what. He's had a really solid season so far this year. He's hitting 275 with a 329 on base, 493 slugging, and a 138 OPS plus. As a left-handed batter, playing at Oracle of all places, yeah, I think that's a pretty good stat line. I think that's going to play in Milwaukee. Furthermore, the Brewers' young outfielders have really struggled opening this season. The highest average is Bryce Perkins at 248. Jackson Chourio is hitting 221, Sal Frelick at 244, and Joey Weimer, before being injured, was hitting 174. So it would probably be in the Brewers' best interest to upgrade alongside Christian Yelich. That way they can have more options, be it in the outfield or be it at DH, because that offense is clicking. In return, the Giants are going to receive outfielder Garrett Mitchell, who is a former top prospect who has exceeded his prospect status. He is currently on the 60-day IL with a major shoulder injury. He does have defensive outfield upside with a bat that could have high upside. In the majors, over 47 MLB games, he's hit 278 with a 343 on base, 452 slugging, and a 795 OPS. He does, however, have a concerning strikeout rate of almost 40% in 47 big league games. So that is something that the Giants could look to potentially work on with Garrett Mitchell. That way they have further outfield depth because guys like Austin Slater and Mike Yastrzemski are leaning towards the older side. So having younger reinforcements like him and Wade Meckler would certainly be valuable to the Giants organization as a whole. The Giants are also going to be receiving right-hander Bradley Blaylock. That is a mouthful. He is currently pitching at Double A, and in 6 games he has a 3-1 record with a 2.43 ERA, 1.11 WHIP as well. He is a four-pitch pitcher with a fastball that'll hit 96, a curveball between 78 and 82 that is probably one of his better pitches according to scouts, a mid-80 slider, and a developing splitter in the upper 80s. Now, even though he is a Double A right now, he is projected to be ready in 2025, mid 2025, early 2026. So he could be another in the next wave of Giants pitchers, including Carson Whisenhunt and Mason Black, who recently debuted for the Giants. Therefore, the Giants are going to bolster their farm system to look to compete for further years to come. Michael Conforto is on an expiring contract. They are able to get something back for him, which is why I see this trade going down. And last but certainly not least, we have the Colorado Rockies, who are currently sitting in 5th place in the National League West. What can I say about the Rockies that has not already been said by anyone out there? Um, to quote Tony Clark, it feels like they're in a race for last. I think that's the quote. I may be mistaken. But the Colorado Rockies, they have a lot of needs. Some of their top performers this year have been guys like Ryan McMahon, who's been doing his usual thing. Ezekiel Tovar's been off to a slow start, but he's been slowly heating up as of late. In the outfield, prospects Jordan Beck and Sean Bouchard have been playing rather well this season. You'll notice something about the names that I've mentioned. They're not the big free agent signings. It's not Chris Bryant. It's not Charlie Blackmon. It's more of the younger guys who are really doing the heavy lifting on this team. And if I'm the Rockies front office, I find a way to move my pending free agents to give my younger guys some more time to get acclimated to the major league level. They have quite a few pending free agents and a couple of guys who are not yet free agents but who could be high commodities at the trade deadline. And something the Rockies should look for is starting pitching. Try to get some starting pitching in any trade that you make. You're going to need it because your top 30 prospects, none of them are at AAA yet in terms of your pitchers, which is not many. Your highest ranked pitching prospect in Chase Dollander is only at A+ ball, and even though he is a college arm, it might take him a year or two to be ready, depending on how he acclimates to Coors Field. So if I'm the Colorado Rockies, I make a trade for pitching, and I trade one of my pending free agents, as you'll see right now. For the final trade of this video, I have the Tampa Bay Rays acquiring catcher Elias Diaz from the Colorado Rockies. The Colorado Rockies will receive left-handed pitcher Jacob Lopez and left-handed pitcher Keyshawn Askew, both of whom are in the Rays' top 30 according to MLB Pipeline. So, Elias Diaz this season is hitting .311 with a .359 on base, .445 slugging, and an .804 OPS, giving him an OPS plus of 120 at the catcher position, a position not necessarily known for its offense in today's MLB. Keep it also in mind that Elias Diaz is a 96th percentile arm in framing according to Baseball Savant. You're getting an elite defensive catcher, well, maybe a very solid defensive catcher, with a very good hit tool, which is not something you see a lot. The Rays had to recently send down right-handed hitting catcher Rene Pinto because he had been struggling, and left-handed hitting catcher Ben Rortvedt is now the Rays' primary catcher. So someone like Elias Diaz at the trade deadline is going to help the Rays. He could even play DH if they need to. He has the bat of a Harold Ramirez with the defensive upside of someone, I can't think of a comparison, but the point is still you get a solid defense catcher with an added hit tool to boot. Now, what do the Rockies get in return? The Rockies are getting left-handed pitcher Jacob Lopez, who has made his major league debut recently with the Tampa Bay Rays, and he's pitched all right. He's currently at AAA. He's 2-2 with a 5.71 ERA, 1.33 WHIP, and he's one of these guys who has more of a funky arm slot than most. The ball is going to come out a little further ahead than other guys because he's using all of that extension. His best pitch is a slider that tops out at 80, between 78 and 80. He has a fastball 89 to 94 and an 80s changeup. He could be a solid piece. You could think of him as almost another Tyler Anderson, if you will. But Tyler Anderson when he was with the Rockies, Tyler Anderson. So Jacob Lopez could be someone who could eat up innings for the Rockies, be it as a starter and as a reliever. He has experience doing both in the Tampa Bay Rays minor league system and at the major league level. The final piece in this trade is left-handed pitcher Keyshawn Askew, who is currently at AA. He's more of a sign-winding lefty relief arm. He's currently 0-2 with a 3.60 ERA and a WHIP at 1.6. He does have a solid K rate of 15 strikeouts compared to 9 walks. He's a sidearm reliever who you're going to use to get lefties and some righties out. He's currently working on a changeup and a four-seam to implement to his already solid two-seam and slider to help him get righties out. So there's all the tools here that he wants to be a solid left-handed arm, not just a Lukey type of guy. So these two pitchers could be in play for the Rockies, be it next season or even in the seasons after. So there you have it, folks, my way too early MLB trade deadline predictions for the National League West. Let me know what you think about these trades in the comments below. Keep in mind these were not made with baseball trade values, so if you try to put these in that simulator, you might get something incredibly inaccurate for either that or for here. So, with that being said, thank you all so very much for watching. Comment down below your thoughts on these trades, and if you want me to do another edition of these for a different division, and let me know which division, the division with the most comments, will be the one that I take a look at next. So, thank you all so very much for watching this video. With that being said, Stat Nerd Baseball is going to sign off. Wish you all a good one. I'll talk to you all again soon.